What a run the Michigan Wolverines are on. 5 straight wins, including 3 conference games in that stretch. They're 5-0 in the Big Ten, joining Michigan State as the only conference unbeatens. The offense has really clicked during the win streak, averaging 13 made threes per game, hitting at a nearly 46% clip, outscoring their opponents by 25 points per game. FAU transfer Vlad Goldin has been fantastic, better than 19 per game for the guy who leads all power conference players nationally in field goal percentage. And speaking of FAU, that gets us to our big interview. It is Wolverines coach Dusty May, his first year in Ann Arbor after leading the Owls to 2 straight NCAA tournaments, including a Final Four a couple of years ago. Coach, great to have you with us. How has what has happened so far in your first year compared to what you expected?
Dave, thanks for having me on. First of all, I didn't really have a lot of expectations other than just try to do what we do every day and help these guys be the best they can be. But it has been fun to see our guys grow. We didn't really identify roles early in the year. We wanted to see what these guys could do and see what they could figure out. And so it's rewarding to see them become a more connected group to play off of each other and really enjoy the growth process and learning process.
One of the things that has really struck me in watching you guys this year versus watching what we saw from your FAU teams is this is not necessarily how you played offensively. I mean, this is a team that's playing at a quicker pace. How did this offense evolve? How did you get to where you are?
Just constantly studying modern concepts and philosophies and trying to stay up to speed and even trying to get ahead of the game a little bit. Even that's becoming increasingly difficult. But we knew what kind of shots we wanted to generate. We studied our players extensively and felt like we had a good feel for what they brought to the table. And so we just had to figure out the best way to get to those shots. And whether it's on-ball actions, off-ball actions in transition or slowing it down. And, we've had some growing pains. There have been some possessions and tight games when we didn't execute nearly as well as we needed to win those games. And so we've had to learn on the fly. We felt like a tough, challenging schedule would prepare us for Big Ten play. And we feel like we're drastically better than we were when we began the season back in November.
There's so much focus on your 7-footers, how hard they are to defend. I want to talk about each one of them. Let's start with Danny Wolf. This skill set is unique for a 7-footer. I mean, the way that he handles the ball, he can be a very good passer. I know he struggled a little bit with turnovers, but man, I mean, the way that he works in that pick and roll with Vlad as a facilitator is fantastic. What has struck you in working with Danny, a guy who came from the Ivy League and now is excelling in the Big Ten?
I think the most enjoyable part of working with Danny is he's always looking for solutions to the next problem. And once we figured out, once those guys figured out that this is going to be really tough to defend and they were going to play off of it and really complement each other well, then we knew we'd see a lot of different coverages. I used to watch Cubs games growing up, and there's 1 or 2 possessions a game when he does something, and I go Harry Carey and say, "Holy cow, that just happens." Danny gets a lot of the praise and credit for the beautiful plays that he makes. But also Vlad's ability to catch the ball low, high, on the move, behind him, in front of him. He has catcher's mitts, his hands. And so that, in addition to our shooting and our unselfish guard play, it's just kind of work together, especially when the game is slowed down.
Do you do a Harry Carey impression as a Cubs fan?
I did back in the day. I wish my language was that good now. I replaced another word with cow just because this is.
But you're not going to give me the thing about Wolf is unbelievable skill set. We're not going to get any of that? No real Harry?
Holy cow, Dave.
All right. We'll take that. What about Vlad? So we had John Beeline in here on Sunday, and we were marveling at Vlad's footwork. And one of the things that John said was that, hey, somewhere along the way, was it when he was growing up, was it in Russia, Was it in his brief time at Texas Tech or FAU or maybe at Michigan? Like, that people have done an amazing job with him and his footwork. You've had him now at a couple stops. Like, take me through how you have seen that part of his game evolve. What makes him so good there?
Well, he obviously has some natural gifts, and he worked when he was young with the CSKA program in Russia, and obviously they did a great job and gave him a real strong foundation. And he went to a very good prep school in Connecticut, and they play a very fast, athletic style. So he was able to acclimate to the American game quickly because of those experiences. And then Texas Tech, they switched the 1 through 5 ball screens, so he had to speed up to the game there as well. And then when we got him at FAU, we were just determined to play him through mistakes. We were going to grow with him because we knew he could be one of the best bigs in our league, if not the best big. And then as far as his footwork and his agility and his conditioning, that's a testament to his work ethic. He puts as much time as any player I've ever coached on his body, on his mindset. I think he enjoys training probably even more than he enjoys playing the game of basketball. So he takes care of his body. He does a long lift and conditioning session after every home game. He's relentless. I mean, I've seen, he personally hired one of the track coaches at FAU to work with him on his stride and his gait. And so it's years, of intentional work on what he felt like he needed to do to get better. And then obviously the assistant coaches and managers and support staff spend a lot of time assisting him and helping him grow. But it's a tribute to his work ethic.
Dusty, much has been made about the time that you spent with Bob Knight, just because it's so interesting, right? You were a team manager in Indiana. You're a product of the Midwest. I look at you, I look at the way you coach. It's a slightly different demeanor, I think it would be fair to say, from Coach Knight. So what did you learn from him? I mean, your style is very different, but what did you learn in that time of being around one of the greatest coaches in terms of his success record in the history of the game?
Coach Knight's ability to elevate the intensity of any room, stadium, arena that he walked into was second to none. Everyone around had to anticipate the next 3 steps. You had to be on your toes, and the times were different back then. But also his physical stature, who he was, his reputation allowed him to do that as well as anyone. And I think anyone in his presence was better because they were there. It was challenging. It was tough. But I coached AAU one summer when I was a manager and had some really good players. And so that was kind of the first year of my development of trying to figure out who I was going to be. And fortunately, I worked for a lot of really good head coaches along the way and spent an inordinate amount of hours with assistant coaches trying to figure out, how you're going to be as a coach if you ever get that opportunity. So I just decided a long time ago that this was the best way for me, that I was going to be this type of coach. And I've tried to be the best best version of myself.
2 years ago at this time, you were a relative unknown. I don't think anyone would have looked at where you were and said, hey, a couple of years from now, this guy is going to be the head coach at a Big Ten school, A, and then B, at a Big Ten school, the stature of Michigan, a national championship program in the past. How has your life changed here over the last couple of years?
Well, Dave, I appreciate you saying relative unknown instead of just unknown.
I mean, somebody knew you, right?
Yeah, someone did, I'm sure.
Yes.
But anyway, never would have dreamed this. I've said repeatedly, this was bigger than any of my dreams. I'm very, very honored to coach this game and just try to bring great mobility to the profession and whatnot. That's been the hardest part of not being unknown, because I enjoy my alone time. I enjoy my family. I enjoy obscurity. So that's been a little bit difficult because of the magnitude of Michigan. Yeah. But that comes with it, and again, I'm honored to do that part of the job as well.
So one of the things that you could do in your anonymity in Boca was ride your bike to work. Can you still do that in Ann Arbor? I mean, you have the anonymity factor, and then you have the weather factor. So how has the bike commute changed?
Well, I did all summer, and then I tried to a few times in the fall, and I didn't realize how cold my hands would get. There was a bike path, so it's relatively safe. I enjoyed it. It's one of those things where we joke as a staff, as obviously we talk about the winter now for the guys that came up from Boca with me, that we didn't realize how much time we spent indoors, that the cold really hasn't bothered us. I do feel bad for Coach Moore on the football side occasionally when I see those guys having to work outside. But yeah, I look forward to picking it back up in the spring. And we've had to move the bicycles out of the way to move the cars in the garage for the winter.
One last thing I want to ask you. You guys are 5-0. Michigan State is also 5-0, as you probably noticed. We don't get to see those games until late February and early March. But what have you learned about this Michigan State basketball rivalry in your short time in Ann Arbor?
Well, there will be no love lost on those two nights. It's intense, and obviously, Coach Howard, Coach Beeline, the coaches before me here, they contributed to this rivalry. And Coach Izzo is a guy that when you're a young coach, especially coming into the profession as I did, you look up to the way he did it and how he consistently performed at such a high level. So we look forward to competing with him in those two games, and also hopefully we can continue down this path on a championship trajectory. There's a big difference between first and second place, so we have a long way to go. But it's going to be fun just battling these great coaches and great programs, and we look forward to it.
Well, I know a lot of basketball between now and then, starting Thursday at Minnesota. But, Coach, really appreciate your time. It's been a lot of fun to watch this team evolve here in your first year. Appreciate you taking the time to talk to us.
Thank you, Dave. Appreciate you having me on.